Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Boundaries, the world's premier podcast for international students, or at least in the top 25. I'm John with the TOEFL program, and I'm honored today to be joined by distinguished guest Richard James, the Director of Graduate Recruiting at Georgia State University's J. Mac Robinson College of Business. Richard, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, John. I really appreciate the invitation and looking forward to a great conversation today.
Yeah. Now, before we get to Georgia State, Atlanta is, I think, one of the most fascinating cities in the Northern Hemisphere. And I want you to share a little bit about some of the values of Atlanta for folks overseas who may never have researched the city before.
Yeah, being a native of Atlanta, I have a very close affinity to the city. I've lived in almost every part of Atlanta, from the suburbs to the city. I think it's one of the truly untapped markets. When you think about the U.S., especially for an international student, you always kind of gravitate to the New Yorks, the LAs, the Miami and things. But I feel like we have a really good thing going here in Atlanta. Atlanta is home to like many Fortune 500 companies. A lot of companies are establishing their headquarters here, and I think when you think about the city itself, it's really a melting pot, right? And you can really go to different parts of the city and get a completely different cultural vibe. And I think for us, Georgia State kind of being right there in the middle, we're able to kind of take advantage of this huge untapped business hub. I think right now they call us the Hollywood of the South, because a lot of people are starting to see all the movies, and if you're a Tyler Perry fan, he's here, and so you have a lot of the and it actually happens at Georgia State quite a bit. We do. I get an email at least once or twice every other week about a movie that's being filmed like in front of our school, and a lot of our students get to be extras in them. And so if you have an interest in the film industry, I think it's a great hub for that. But if you're really looking at business, we're also kind of emerging. We have these new industries in fintech and health informatics and supply and logistics. If you're into those kind of things, Atlanta is really starting to thrive in that area and really become this tech hub in the Southeast region.
It's booming. I looked at the data for the last 4 years. The number of international students in Georgia is up 16%, and most of that growth is from Atlanta. Infinite opportunities, relatively cheap housing compared to the coast as well. And Richard, you mentioned the diversity of vibes, and you mentioned Tyler Perry. Going back a little further in time, I'm an elder millennial. There were two formative bands for me as a middle schooler who both come from the Atlanta metropolitan area.
Okay.
And their sounds are as different as you can imagine. So one, you might be able to guess. One was REM, guys with guitars,
Yeah.
nasally, whiny voices, alt rock. And the second was Outkast, maybe the most important band of my youth.
Yeah.
Revolutionary hip hop / funk / techno.
Yeah.
For students thinking about Atlanta, if you YouTube both of these bands, wildly different, but both came from the Atlanta area.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the perfect antidote to try to like sum it together. And that's why I refer to Atlanta as this melting pot, because just the way you talk about, like, we're in the South, so we have that warm hospitality, the cultural festivals. We have some pretty good food too, right? I mean, you can, I'm not gonna, exaggerate and say we have the best cuisine, but we do. We have the like Taste of Atlanta that's always really good, where you can get some good barbecue, you can get some good soul food. But there's so many options. My wife is a big Indian cuisine lover. She loves a good curry and things. So it's there's some good Thai food that's around here. I mean, you have a lot of options, to choose from. And so I like to think that Atlanta really has something for everybody, whether it's your musical taste or your film interests, and even the parks and outdoor life. A lot of people don't really associate. So and it's not far from campus. So the city's kind of undergoing this initiative to try to really make the city more walkable. And so we have the belt line, and students can really enjoy nature. They can, enjoy the city. There's some good restaurants, some good bars. And so you're able to walk along the belt line and really take a tour of the city. And there's like some skateboard parks. And so if you're not used to that kind of thing, there's a lot of trees. And I think that's something really unique about being in a city. You don't typically see all of the green, the nature and all of those things. So I think it's a little different. And then you touched on something earlier about just the cost of living. I think that's a huge factor. When you're kind of looking at the economics of things, if you're new to the U.S. and you want to take advantage of a thriving business hub, but also, being able to have an affordable cost of living situation, Atlanta is always ranked near the best cities as far as just, what you're getting and what you're able to afford and rent and food, transportation, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Atlanta's kind of in that sweet spot where you don't have to break the bank to find a decent place to live during school, but in the summer and after school, the available work opportunities are vast. So it
Absolutely.
kind of meets both needs. Well,
And then
I'm sold.
you kind of bring up too, like the transportation. I mean, we can't understate that too. So we have the world's busiest airport, right? And
Mhm.
so because Delta has their hub here, it also makes travel accessible, and we're able to allow our students to take advantage of that too. We have, study abroad opportunities. We have our Panthers on Wall Street, Panthers in the Valley, and so we're able to keep our students connected to the country at large, right? Because I mean, the U.S. Is a pretty vast place, and there's a lot of good opportunities, a lot of different places. But being in Atlanta really gives you a distinct advantage.
And it's a fun trivia fact for those who play trivia. The world's busiest airport, it's not LAX, it's not JFK, it's Atlanta. And through that busy airport, each year, there are thousands of international students that come to Georgia State. So, with that level and volume of international students, Georgia State has a really robust array of resources at the disposal of international students. Could you talk a little bit more about the resources available at Georgia State for folks from overseas?
Absolutely, and I'm going to speak from the vantage point of someone who was a first generation college student, right? And I think for someone in that lens, you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes because we're the largest institution, sometimes people might feel like, oh, I'm just a number. I want a more small, intimate setting, and we actually try to make that bubble a little smaller for people. And we do that by connecting people with all of those resources. So not only do we have 6 campuses, we have the downtown campus, which is our main campus, and so you have everything there. But then most of our graduate business students are taking classes in Buckhead, which is another major business district within the city of Atlanta. We like to tell students, like, you can go from the classroom and walk to your internship, right? And so having that connectivity makes your graduate experience a lot more memorable. It makes for seamless transportation to and from. And so what we've done is we've divided up some things. And so you if you look at your path as a student, you have a lot of different things that you need to accomplish each and every semester. And so from the time that you're even considering going to school, you have I have a team, and our admissions and operations team that's really going to help you to make sure you're selecting the right program, because that's most important. Fit with the program, making sure that aligns with your long-term career endeavors, and just making sure that your expectations are aligning with our program outcomes, right? And so that's the first step. But then once you're here, especially for an international student, there's so many things that you need to take into account. It's from updating your resume. If you're looking to stay here in the US, you want to reformat that resume to make sure it's aligning with what these companies are looking for. If you're need practice with your public speaking or mock interviews, we have our Career Advancement Center to really kind of meet you where you are, because typically what we're coaching our students is we employ a relationship-based job search. So as you're looking for your next opportunity, whether that's a full-time role, whether it's an internship, we want to show you how to start building your relationship, and get away from the days of just, blindly finding a job online and just submitting a resume. That's just one in thousands of resumes out there, right? And so we want to really coach you on how to grow your network. And that's what makes being a part of a large business school so valuable, right? Because we have over 80,000 alumni. And if you look at the Atlanta area, a lot of the CEOs, a lot of the C-suite executives, there's not another institution that has more alumni in those C-suite positions than Georgia State, right? And so we're able to tap into that, build your professional network to kind of help you along. But then afterwards, so it's not just while you're in school. When you graduate, then you're a part of our alumni group. I was actually just at an alumni event last night. We took our alumni, we treated them out to Fido, which is a nice restaurant out in Buckhead. And so really maintaining those relationships is equally as important to us as it should be for you. And so you have those resources that are available. And for those that are looking that still need visas and need some help with that, we have an international student services team that once you're admitted into the program, they will also work with you in getting all your documents in place to make sure that you get that visa and you're able to make it here in time for class. And so you have a lot of resources that are at your disposal while you're here.
Richard, I love the idea of the small bubble, but it sounds like that bubble can expand as students progress to the program. And the bubble also contains tens of thousands of alumni who might hold the key to a good job.
Absolutely. I mean, so we coach the 3 E's for our students. So you need education, which, you're coming to school, so you're going to get educated. You need experience, but then you also need some exposure, right? And so that kind of goes back to my previous comment about, you don't know what you don't know. And so one of the strengths of us is because we have students from more than 60 different countries. That's one of the things that makes Georgia State so innovative is that diversity of thought, right? And so when you think about the problems, the business problems that's really plaguing our nation as a whole, you can't have people approaching those problems from the same lens. This is why we don't require you come from a specific undergrad program. We feel like you have value in your educational background as well as your cultural background. There's some knowledge that you've gained on your journey. We just want to package that together and make sure it fits with that particular program. And so you have, like you said, that bubble. And so as you get more exposure, you're going to start to see, and it's very common too. You might take a couple classes and you're an MBA student and you take a couple classes and you find out, I really like this data science and analytics. I think I want to kind of take a deeper dive into that. And so being able to adjust your academic path is also an option, right? And so you have that ability as you talk to people and you find out, well, what does a data scientist really do? or what does a citizen data scientist do? We have what's popular right now in the U.S. is cybersecurity, right? I feel like every time I turn on the news, some business is getting hacked again, and so it's a big topic of discussion here in the U.S. And so we have a cybersecurity program within our information systems, and so we have technical tracks, we have managerial tracks where you can start to utilize some of those transferable skills to find your path. And so as you get exposed to that, absolutely, your body of knowledge should, and that bubble should continue to grow. If you're not growing, if you're not uncomfortable, then I'd probably question whether you were really growing if you're not uncomfortable. And so that's what we want to see. And so that's why we've strategically made this market ready list. And so we're going to help you to plan that out. So every semester, you're going to have some goals and things that, semester one, it might be just getting acclimated with the city. It might be, meeting your cohort, right? And then semester two, you might start, revising your resume, start getting a feeler out, do your first mock interview. And as you're getting closer to the third semester of your program, now you're expanding your professional network. Now you've taken a lot of that knowledge from the first couple semesters, because you're going to learn a lot in 2 semesters. Now you can start filling out those job opportunities, building those relationships. And so we're going to help guide you on that path. Absolutely.
Richard, I love the 3 E's. And you mentioned earlier, too, this is one last curiosity, that you yourself were a first generation student. And so, much like the international students that are coming to your school, you experienced an American college through fresh eyes and were likely surprised by some of the cultural components. So, did your experience as a first generation inform how you advise international students coming to Georgia State?
Absolutely. And I didn't get it right my first time, right? So I started my collegiate journey at Tennessee State University. And even being from Atlanta, I wanted to kind of get out of my comfort zone. I knew Atlanta, I grew up all around the city. And so I was very comfortable. So I just wanted something to get me out of my comfort zone. And so if you know anything about Nashville and Tennessee State, it's your traditional college, right? It's not really in a
Yes.
business district or anything. So it's your traditional college. Had a great experience there. Probably had too much of a great experience because it didn't really work out well for me, just kind of being out. And so I ended up coming back to Atlanta, and I always knew about Georgia State. But the experience and what I take and how I advise students now is those are two very different experiences. You're talking about a traditional campus, whereas when I came to Georgia State, we're right in the heart of downtown. Kind of going back to that
Right.
earlier point where I'm walking from my classroom out the door. Now I'm going to my job. Now I'm going to my internship. Now I'm doing, networking events because we have, I mentioned all the restaurants and different things that are right around campus that a lot of these executives are going to, for like a happy hour or a dinner or a meeting. And so you're able to kind of start tapping into those networks, and so that was a very different experience, and it allowed me to grow. And so that's what I challenge a lot of our incoming students to do now is one, getting out of your comfort zone, right? Take advantage, regardless of where you're coming from. And we have students from all over the world. Matter of fact, we at the alumni event had a student from Latin America in Chile, and so wonderful student, first time in Atlanta, and just having a great time. He was one of the we had a snowstorm, and he was this was his first introduction to snow, and it was just really good for him, and he has shared kind of a similar story with me, just being able to, walk around the city, meeting new people, and feeling comfortable, feeling safe, feeling
Sure.
comfortable, because safety and walkability is still something that's very, very important. And so, yeah, absolutely. I take my whole story with me everywhere I go. One thing I would share and encourage a lot of my students to do is talk to as many people as you can. That was one of the things that I kind of missed out on. I wish I would have had a chance to talk to some of the current students, right? Just, you probably expect me to say great things because, I work for Georgia State now, but, if I could go back in time, I would try to talk to some of the students that are in the place that I think I want to be in. That's one of the reasons why a few years ago we rolled out a new initiative where we took out the middleman, right? And so if you go on our website, you can actually see a profile of many of our students that have volunteered just to be a resource for you. And so you can look and you could see if you want to do it by program, undergraduate major, you could do it geographically. If you want to talk to someone who, came from Ghana or Nigeria, or Bangalore, you can see those profiles on there and reach out to them directly, and they will message you back, ask them whatever you'd like, but get as much information as you can, because again, I can't emphasize that fit, that ultimately helps you to succeed and get that post-graduation success that you're looking for.
That's wonderful advice. And for the record, this winter, Atlanta had a historic snowstorm, but this is unusual. Atlanta's usually fairly warm, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in the South, and that's one of the reasons why I love Atlanta, because, it doesn't stay the same temperature very long, right? And so, like, we get made fun of on the news every time we do have a snowstorm, which I think the last one was in maybe 2014, maybe. That was the last really bad one, but it's just, it's a good experience. It's beautiful if you've never seen it. The roads being completely white, and my kids out making snow angels, and my son out there trying to do snowball fights, and it's a really good time. But yeah, that was a good experience for a lot of our incoming students that had never experienced it before. And so if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, because you could see a lot of those pictures. We were able to share a lot of that stuff because it was just a really good field time story for us. Just a lot of our students being able to experience that for the first time.
It sounds so much fun. Well, go find Richard James on LinkedIn. Go listen to REM and Outcast.
Absolutely.
And, Georgia State offers the 3 E's: education, experience, exposure. And it sounds like part of this exposure could be being an extra in a Tyler Perry film. I cannot imagine anything better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's a lot of, they do. They send us a notice because, every time they're filming something, they'll tell you the name of the picture, and, it's I don't know too many opportunities for that at other places.
Oh, no, it does remind me. I lived in Chicago for a long time, and they had these endless dramas on network TV, the Chicago Fire, and they would often film Chicago Fire in my neighborhood. So I would walk and I would see a overturned ambulance and think, oh no, and then I would realize it was just a film set. So opportunities abound in the U.S., particularly in Atlanta. Richard James of Georgia State, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. I appreciate the talk, John, and I'm always willing to have a conversation. So if I can be of any of assistance, me, a member of my team, absolutely, we're always here to help.
Awesome. Thanks again, Richard.